In this video today, I'm going to be taking a look at some of the prerequisite skills that you need to make sure that you have a good grasp of if you are attempting to prepare for the SAT. I am breaking the prerequisite skills up into different categories, so in this video I'm just going to be focusing on algebra and arithmetic. Alright, so for one of the first things, you need to have a really good grasp of the order of operations. Alright, this very common acronym will help you to remember that order of operations. A lot of people use this acronym of "Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally" to help remember the order here. But basically what this says is that you have to work problems in a certain order. You should always work things inside parentheses first. Then if you've got some exponents, work those out. That multiplication and division right there is of equal importance, and it should be done left to right. And same thing with the A and S, which is add and subtract. That needs to be done left to right as well. So I thought I would do just one example here of this order of operations. Let's say basic arithmetic here. Alright, I've got a set of parentheses here and a set of parentheses here, so I'm going to kind of work in both spots at the same time. And within this set of parentheses, I again still have to follow this order of operations. I have subtraction and division. Well, division comes first. That means I've got to divide there first. So I'm going to have a 14 minus 4 divided by 2 is a 2. I'm going to keep the parentheses in that exponent. The minus 3 I'm not doing anything with. And then I'm going to go ahead and work inside that set of parentheses right there. 2 minus 1 is going to be 1. Alright, now I still have a set of parentheses left. One operation in there to do. So 14 minus 2 is going to be a 12. It's still squared. Minus 3 plus 1. Alright, now I'm ready for exponents. I see an exponent here, so 12 squared, or 12 times 12, is 144. And then minus 3 plus 1. I have subtraction and addition left. They are of equal importance. I must do them left to right, so I must subtract first. 144 minus 3 is going to give me 141, and then plus that one more will give me 142. So just one real quick example there using that order of operations. Another area for a prerequisite skill in this category would be some of your basic properties. There's lots of properties, alright, but if you know these three, then you're probably going to be pretty good. The community property basically just says that you can switch numbers in any order when you multiply or add them, and you're going to get the same answer. So let's write down switching to maybe help you remember that. Alright, but like so for instance, 4 plus 5 is the exact same thing as 5 plus 4. Okay, so switching the order on addition does not matter. Switching the order on multiplication does not matter. So 8 times 2 is the same thing as 2 times 8. Okay, so that's the community property. Associative property means that you can regroup numbers. Okay, so keyword here, regrouping. So for instance, if I had 4 plus 2 plus 3, 2 plus 3 being grouped together, that's the exact same thing as if I would group 4 and 2 together. So 4 plus 2, group those two together, and then add 3 more. Okay, this works with addition, and this also works with multiplication. So I could do 5 times 3, and maybe I'm grouping that together, times 2, but then if I regroup, 5 times 3 times 2. Okay, still regrouping. Okay, so that's another very handy thing when you're trying to work with arithmetic here. The distributive property, to me, basically is an action you do, maybe when solving an algebraic expression. So we're going to do that kind because that's probably going to be more helpful for you. If I had a number on the outside of a set of parentheses, and then maybe on the inside I had like a 2x minus 3. Basically, the distributive property says whatever's on the outside of the parentheses has to be done to everything on the inside. So in other words, that 4 needs to be multiplied by the 2x. The 4 also needs to be multiplied by that negative 3 right there. So to me, distributive property is more of an action. When I do that, 4 times 2x is going to give me an 8x, and then 4 times the negative 3 is going to give me a negative 12, or we can just write minus 12 right there. But the distributive property helps you in simplifying some of your algebraic expressions. Alright, so there's 2 very important prerequisite skills. Now moving on to a few more here. All right, definitely anything with the SAT, you are going to have to know your rules for integers. So in other words, you need to be able to add, subtract, multiply, and divide with positive and negative numbers. That's what integers are. So if you have never learned all of those rules, now would be a good time to do that, because you're just not going to have time to put everything in a calculator. Plus, there is that non-calculator portion. So if you're adding two negatives, all right, very quickly, when adding like signs, add, keep the same sign. It's those type of things that you need to have a command on. Maybe you have, like, say, a negative 12 minus a negative 2, all right, depending on how you've memorized this rule and how you've learned it. I usually teach my students that this becomes a plus plus. Now I'm adding unlike signs, so I can subtract and get the sign of the larger, which is like negative 10. Okay, so there's a variety of different things, ways the rules can be done. You can think of it on a number line, that sort of thing, but you need a good command of this. Let's do a couple more. Like if I had a negative 8 times, maybe say a negative 3. All right, when multiplying like signs, answer is always positive. Okay, or maybe dividing unlike signs. So maybe say a 12 divided by a negative 2. That's dividing unlike signs, so answer is going to be negative. So that'd be like a negative 6. All right, but in this video, I'm not really intending to actually teach these prerequisite skills, just kind of telling you which ones they are, so that if you don't know them, you can go back and work on those. Alright, you should also have a really good grasp on working with any type of fractions. Proper, improper, mixed numbers, all of the rules for adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing fractions you ought to be able to do. Because again, you're not always going to be able to grab that calculator and do it. Sometimes it's quicker just if you know how to do this. Alright, on the adding one here, I did adding because you have to have common denominators. So this fraction would need to be multiplied by 4 over 4, and this one would need to be multiplied by 3 over 3. You need to get those common denominators. So then this problem would become 8 over 12 plus 15 over 12, and then 8 plus 15. So 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So 23 over 12, and that's an improper fraction. Okay, depending on what the directions say, you could possibly leave it like that, or go ahead and turn that into a mixed number. Okay, so that goes in, 12 goes into 23 one time, and you'd have 11 left over. Okay. Dividing. Okay, I use a simple mnemonic for that. It's keep it, switch it, flip it. Alright, now before you implement the keep it, switch it, flip it, since they are mixed numbers, you would need to turn them into improper fractions. So 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 more is going to be 7/3. Alright, and then I'm not going to do the keep it, switch it, flip it yet. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 more is 7/2. Now I'm going to implement my keep this fraction, switch this to multiplication, and flip this fraction around. So I'd have a 7/3 times 2 7s. 7s are going to cross out, and that's going to give you a nice little 2/3. Okay, but you should have a really good grasp on both integers and fractions and be able to, crank out some of that arithmetic there without your calculator. Alright, so a few more topics that would be considered prerequisite skills that they would expect you to know. Anything dealing with absolute value. You should be able to do a single absolute value with just a single number in there. So like absolute value of -7 is going to be 7. Absolute value of 0 is 0. Common things of that nature. You should also know with absolute value that anything inside, like maybe say a -4, minus a -9, you cannot apply that absolute value to this until you get down to a single number. So I would need to go ahead and simplify what's on the inside. I could turn that into a little plus plus right there and get the absolute value of 5, and then the absolute value of 5 being 5. So absolute value, really good concept there. Now, anything dealing with irrational numbers, mainly this is going to be radicals, maybe pi. Alright, you're allowed to, on the SAT, to work it out using those radicals. So I did a real simple problem here. If it's like 4 times square root 2, 4 square root 2. Squish it together like that. You may work the entire problem out with your radicals, all right? And then as a special note here, if the question asks for an approximate value, you convert to a decimal after you have your final answer. So go ahead, work the problem out with your radicals. When you get down to this final answer, then that's when you're going to want to convert it to a decimal, if they ask you to do so. All right, and then the last thing that is extremely crucial for a prerequisite skill, they are going to expect you to be able to solve any one variable equation. All right, this is critical. This is extremely critical. So no matter if it's in one variable and it's just a straightforward equation, they would expect you to have a very good command of this. So I wrote one here that might give people a little bit of trouble here, maybe like 4x over 5 minus 2 equals 6. Okay, so you're going to add 2 to both sides. Alright, that's going to give you a 4x over 5 equals 6 plus 2 more is going to give me an 8. Okay, now it doesn't make any difference whether that x is in the numerator or the x is out there in front. Okay, you might see this written as a 4/5 x equals 8. Alright, these two things are the same thing, and they would expect you to recognize that as a prerequisite skill. Multiplying by the reciprocal of that coefficient is a shortcut. So multiplying by 5/4, multiplying by 5/4. So it crosses out on this side, leaving you with just the x, which is what we want. And here again, see, this is why earlier you have to have a command of those fractions, because 4 goes into 4 once, 4 goes into 8 2 times, and that leaves you with a nice little 10. You would not want to have to grab a calculator to do that on this simple, one variable equation. Alright, so basically just a few topics under the category of algebra and arithmetic that are definitely prerequisite skills and that you totally have to have under control when going into the SAT. Definitely thanks for watching. Be sure and watch for videos in this series specifically. We're going to do lots of things like tips and tricks, prerequisite skills, and then actually problems that will be on the SAT in 3 levels, easy, medium, and hard. So continue to watch for the videos in this series. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe.